Welcome back to Forward Progress here, part of the Hammer Betting Network on YouTube. Rob Pizzola, joined by professional NFL bettor and a Jets fan. You see it with the Jets hat. Fabian Sommer, live from Germany right now. And we have a big trade in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, officially a New York Jet. We see it in the graphic courtesy of Pro Football Focus, but Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets along with the 15th overall pick, the 170th overall pick. And in exchange, the Packers get the 13th overall pick in this year's draft, 42nd overall, 207th overall, and a conditional second round pick, which could amount to something if the Jets go deep into the playoffs. So, Suma, I'll ask you first and foremost, as a Jets fan, immediate reaction upon hearing the trade.
Fuck them picks. The Jets will be relevant for the first time since I started watching the NFL, so I couldn't care less about those picks. That was the emotional reaction. I mean, when I started watching football, it was the first Rex Ryan year, and it was all defense, Mark Sanchez as a rookie, one game ground and pound, and I've really never experienced a good offense as a Jets fan. Maybe the Ryan Fitzpatrick era came somewhat close to it in his first year with Brandon Marshall, but other than that, this is probably the first and maybe the only year for the foreseeable future where the Jets might have a good offense and might be relevant.
So the betting markets have reacted accordingly, as they typically do. And I'm sure there's a bunch of people who are trying to get down on the Jets futures right away when this has happened. They leapfrog teams in the AFC like teams in the AFC like the Miami Dolphins, the Los Angeles Chargers, Baltimore Ravens, Jacksonville Jaguars in terms of odds to win the AFC. So we're seeing books post them in the range of 9-1 to win the AFC, 14-1 to win the Super Bowl. But what's interesting to me is that they've sort of carved out their own tier in the betting odds. So you have the Kansas City Chiefs atop in the AFC. Then you have that tier with the Bills and the Bengals. And then it's the Jets on their own. And I'm curious, your immediate thoughts with the acquisition of Aaron Rodgers. Are they closer to that tier above them, the Bills and the Bengals? Or do you think they're closer to that tier below them that includes the Dolphins, the Chargers, and the Ravens?
I would argue that it's completely fair to put them right around the middle of those tiers because I think there's a good case to be made that they are, from an overall team perspective, better than those teams like the Chargers, the Jaguars, and the Ravens, who all have some more question marks, I would argue. But with Aaron Rodgers being 39 years old, I think there's also some uncertainty, which still leaves a gap towards the Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Pat Mahomes-led football teams, in my opinion.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the return for the Green Bay Packers here, because you obviously come at it from the perspective of being a Jets fan and very excited about Aaron Rodgers. In my opinion, I think this is a win-win trade. Like, I hate to be that guy who's sort of in the middle. It's like good for both teams. Most fans typically want some sort of extreme reaction, right? This team fleeced that team or whatever. But I saw the trade and I was like, oh, this makes sense. Obviously, the Jets need a quarterback. I would argue that they already have a Super Bowl caliber roster. You plug in a quarterback, they have very high upside, in my opinion. The Packers, I thought they had very little leverage going into this. Everybody knows Aaron Rodgers wants out, went on the darkness retreat, whatever. I think that they got back some pretty decent value, knowing, with another team knowing that basically Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to play for the Packers this year. So for me, it's a win-win. What did you think of the return that the Packers got?
I think technically, and when you apply like some draft chart models or like some very modern models like Ben Baldwin stuff or Brad Spielberger's OTC stuff, I think there's a pretty hard lean towards Packers benefiting a lot more from this trade because they got the equivalent of basically the third overall pick according to Brad Spielberger, and they got 2 first-round picks in exchange according to what Ben Baldwin has posted earlier. I think depending on what draft chart model you apply, you will always arrive somewhere in the range. So I think that the Packers, for a 39-year-old quarterback that wanted to leave town anyway, got a great return, in my opinion. From the Jets' point of view, yes, it's very expensive, but I think we also have to make the condition that the Jets were desperate and they basically had no other choice than making this trade. And technically speaking, they had to overpay for Aaron Rodgers. Now they're getting Aaron Rodgers for probably 1 or 2 years. They can go all in. They will not care too much about 2025, in my opinion, right now. They just want to get through the next 2 seasons with a decent defense and maybe a very good offense. So I think from their point of view, they had to devalue their future picks a little bit. But if you just look at it objectively, just technically, I think the Packers got a good deal here.
So the Packers will obviously ride most likely with Jordan Love this season. A lot of people already are talking about it being a throwaway year for the Packers. Obviously, you get rid of an elite franchise quarterback, and that's what the talk is going to be. I'm not necessarily sure that it's a throwaway year for Green Bay. When I look around the NFC, Suba, I see teams with question marks. Obviously, the Eagles just re-up Jalen Hurts, and they're the favorites, but you have San Francisco with a lot of question marks. Dallas has not been able to get over the hump. And then you have like this crowded middle of teams that thinks that they might be able to compete, but we don't know if they will or not. Curious your take on the Packers going into this year. Do you think it's a throwaway for them and they'll just try to rebuild, or do you think that they'll still see themselves as a team that could potentially compete?
I don't think that it's going to be a throwaway year. I mean, John Love, we have no clue how good it's going to be this year, but he's entering year 4 in the same scheme with the same head coach slash offensive coordinator who is designing that offense basically. And last year when he played, we saw that he might not be a great quarterback, but he's somehow willing to execute that scheme by Matt LaFleur. And in a weak NFC and in a division where you're playing with the Vikings, who should show some regression, with the Bears, who are probably not a playoff contender right now, and the Lions, who are now going to play 6 weeks without their supposed to be wide receiver 1B. I mean, there's still a lot of upside for the Packers in case Jordan Love is playing better than we anticipate. So I would not write off their season at all right now.
And obviously, Thursday, we have the NFL draft. Team swapping picks in the first round. The Packers accrue more draft capital that they can use in the second round here. What are the immediate implications you could think of for the NFL draft? And especially from a betting market, a lot of people are betting on this stuff right now. There's more odds widely available. How do you think the market reacts to what's played out today?
So my immediate reaction when I saw the Adam Schefter tweet was that Broderick Jones is getting bet on the over, because Broderick Jones to the Jets was one of the most popular picks out there, because everyone is thinking or was thinking that the Jets would go offensive line. And Broderick Jones was basically just in that tier after Paris Johnson and Peter Skoronski, and like many people, many sharp mockers mocked him to the Jets. And now with the Jets going from pick 13 to 15, I think it was a very logical move for Broderick Jones to get bet towards the over. And he also caught a lot of money on the over starting early last week. So I immediately opened a bet quiz, and some folks were doing click after click on Broderick Jones over. And I think we are looking at around 14.5 minus 150 or something right now. And for the Packers, if you ask me, like, imagine you get rid of Aaron Rodgers, and there was all this talk every single draft about the Packers not going skill position in the first round. Like, what would be better and more enjoyable for the Packers to just go either Michael Mayer, tight end, or Jackson Smith and Jigbar now at 13? It's also interesting that the Patriots had some connections with going wide receiver in this draft, and now the Packers were able to jump the Patriots and basically are now the first, I would say, logical target for the first wide receiver to go off the board. Jackson Smith and Jigbar, they need a slot guy. That guy is supposed to be a playmaker from day one. Christian Watson on the outside would be the perfect pick, in my opinion. And there's a little bit about rubbing it into Aaron Rodgers' face. Hey, you are leaving town and we are going wide receiver with our first pick.
Lots of interesting implications that I think could take place. Obviously, more to come between now and draft day on Thursday. Thanks to Fabian Sommer for joining me. For those who want an NFL draft watch along this year and to watch other bettors reacting to their teams taking specific players, make sure you are subscribed to the Hammer HQ right here on YouTube. That's the Hammer HQ. There's a live draft watch along starting at 7:45 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday night. And of course, if you do enjoy what we do here at Forward Progress, make sure you like today's video. Make sure you're subscribed to this Forward Progress channel. This has been the Aaron Rodgers trade reaction here on Forward Progress on the Hammer Betting